Contents of today's training webinar. I'll be talking about the principles of what I call big profit increase, not small $20,000, $50,000 stuff, although that is exciting. I want to talk to you about the really big profit increases and what sort of things you need to do to achieve that. I'm going to share with you a strategy of how to increase your net profit by 50% in 1 week that a mechanic used in his business. How to use a business growth calculator. Now, if you've registered for this webinar, you would have had an email sent to you that was talking about a business growth calculator. You would have had a couple of training videos that came with that. How to find your big profit opportunities. Every business I've ever seen has big profit opportunities. And opportunities are like things. You can see an opportunity to make money in lots of different areas of life, and I think your business is exactly the same. So background summary, if you haven't met me before or haven't heard me speak before, I've owned 7 businesses since 1983, partnered with 5 entrepreneurs in business, and that's where I learned a lot from those business partners about how to think more entrepreneurially, how to spot opportunities that are all around you all the time. I've invested over $120,000 in my own education and counting. Every year I'm spending thousands of dollars still. Entered the business coaching industry in 1997 before it became very, very popular, and I've worked with over 1,200 business owners since that time. And in 2007, I focused more on providing a complete system or complete systems that after 10 years of one-on-one, I started to identify the same challenges, the same situations that business owners had, and I systemized that and then provided a group training since the same challenges were suffered by business owners or in the businesses. So I found I could put that into a group and then train business owners in a group and see even better results than I ever saw, well not ever, but that I consistently saw from one-on-one coaching. All right, so the number one focus to double your profits. What is that number one focus that we need to have as a business owner? And it's all too easy in business to be a little bit too caught up, I find, in just getting through lots of work. We've got so much work on and we run our business. We're just trying to get through all the work all the time. And so the focus of profit is a little bit different as far as a mindset. You do need to think very, very differently to think about how to increase your profits. Net profit margin is I think it's the most important number there is in any business. I think it's more important than your phone number, actually. Because if your business doesn't have a high net profit margin, then your phone number won't matter because you won't be in business if you haven't got a decent net profit margin. Now, I'm not sure if you've looked at your profit and loss statement, but I do encourage people to have a look at your profit and loss statement and look at your net profit at the bottom of that profit and loss statement and then divide that dollar figure into the turnover figure, and then you'll get a percentage multiplied by 100, of course, and then you might show as 0.12, which means it's 12%. If you double the net profit margin, you have doubled the net profit in your business. See, turnover is not, to me, a measure of money in a business, because if you turn over $1 million and your costs and overheads or expenses are $1 million, then you're not really making any money. You're watching it all come in, you're watching it all go out. So you're in business to make money, and money to me means net profit. Net profit is what's left after all the money's come in and it's gone back out again. Below 10% on a turnover of $700,000 or more is what I deem to be low. And I've found that at that turnover, that's when it tends to lock in your net profit margin. Now, it often decreases from that point on. But at 500,000, it might be 20 or 25%. At 300,000, it might be 30 or 40%. So what I've found is that from looking at hundreds of businesses' profit and loss statements and comparing 3 years in a row, it's tending to drop down to about 700K figure, and by then you've got a lot of your structure in place. You've probably rented an office, you've probably got an admin person potentially answering the phone, so you've got some of those other costs involved. You're probably running a vehicle out of the business, and so net profit margins tend to decrease until your turnover gets up a bit, and that's sort of the figure that I'm looking for businesses. And unfortunately, not many businesses are at 10. For example, I work with a client that came through my course that we looked at their profit and loss statement. They're turning over $10 million. So it's a pretty decent sized business, been going for 25, 30 years, and the net profit margin was 0, unfortunately. And the year before it was at 3%. So it's not uncommon for net profit margins to be very low, But funny enough, coincidentally, I talked to them today, and they said they're up to 10 now. 10% on a $10 million business is a pretty nice amount of cash to have as pure profit in the business, $1 million in profit. So I'm aiming for businesses and all my clients to get to that 15% when they're at that 700K turnover. And when your net profit margin's low, then you tend to have cash reserve challenges. So you run out of cash on a fairly regular basis, and you make ends meet, and your cash reserves drop down to very low figures. And that's often the case as a result of this net profit margin. So the challenge of a P&L statement, and this is what's not being pointed out to a lot of business owners. You might want to take some notes on this or write down some points, because there's some really interesting stuff coming with this. The problem with it, or the challenge with it, is it only shows average profits and margins, and it doesn't show you which jobs specifically you lost profit on. So if your average net profit margin is 10%, well, that's not what every job's profit margin is going to be. You have some that might go to -5, and you might have some that go to 20, and you're averaging that 10% overall. So the profit loss statement won't show you those other ones. It doesn't show you sales income unless you win a sale today, you get paid today, and it all happens instantly on the spot, like a retail store. Typically, when you win a sale, you get paid for it after you've done the work, which could be weeks or months, many months later. Income is not relative to wages paid. So if you think about the wages you're paying today, it's often for work that you may have won or started a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months ago. So the income being shown on a profit and loss statement comes typically when you're banking it, and yet you pay wages weeks or a month before you've received that cash. So the P&L statement in a time frame, which is like a 1 month profit and loss statement, it's not going to give you really accurate figures because that income is not relative to wages paid at the time. And it doesn't show you that range of margins. It doesn't show you the low, it doesn't show you the high. It's just an average, and you can't do much with an average. But the interesting thing is, if you know your lows, you can do something about it. If you know your highs, you can do something about it. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later, why that is so essential to understand and learn and apply in a business. No questions, so I'll continue on. So let's talk about increasing income versus increasing profit. So you imagine this big blue bucket is like your turnover of your business, and that's where all the activities take place within that bucket in a way. Need a bit of imagination. And imagine the water coming in the top is like someone's turning a tap on, or you're turning a tap on. You introduce a lead generation strategy, and then you get more leads in the top. Now, businesses leak profits, and every business has these profit leaks. And in this scenario here, you can say that the size of your profit bucket is proportional to your turnover or total income bucket. And that would be like a 10% figure, or 15 or 25%, whatever it is. It's easier to plug leaks in a business than what it is just to put more water in the top of the bucket. And the way to find those profit leaks is simply to measure. So let me paint you a picture. Which business would you prefer to own? Let's say you got ABC Co, or you could own XYZ Co. ABC Co has a $1 million turnover, and on a profit and loss statement it shows $50,000 net profit. Therefore, divide one into the other and we get 5%. Number of employees 9, cash in the bank $20,000 minimum, which means it goes down to that level on a regular basis. Or XYZ Co, it has a turnover a bit lower of $800,000, and the net profit is $160,000. Therefore, if we divide it, we get a 20% net profit margin. And because the business has a lower turnover, it's going to have less employees, but maybe proportionally less employees even. But the cash in the bank, because the high net profit margin is operating, means that it may go only as low as the 80,000. So the question is, which business would you prefer to own? Would you prefer to have the $1 million business or the $800,000 business? What are your thoughts on that? Got a couple of answers. XYZ, yeah, okay. XYZ has less employees, and for a lot of business owners I've met, less employees is less headache, so they're quite happy with less employees with a little bit lower turnover. Some people like the idea of a bigger business, but let me share this with you. I want to ask you this question. Would you be prepared to transform ABC Co to XYZ Co if you owned ABC Co now? What are you in business for? What are you in business for? Because if you look at the net profit, you're making 3 times more. If you want to free up time, best way to free up time? Get your net profit up so you can afford to hire someone. To increase turnover, you can just outsource that and hire a marketing company or a website developer or a Google AdWords or social media. You can outsource that. However, if you want to increase profit margins, the responsibility falls to you to learn certain skills. And I know that's tough when you're really busy and you're flat out and you don't have much time now, but the rewards are spectacular for the learning curve that you go through. And comes down to this: are you prepared to transform your business and your life in 12 months' time? And are you prepared to do what it takes to do that? That's really the question. So the three essential skills to increase profit margins are people, measuring, and systems. And when you combine people with measuring, you create accountability. It's like hiring a salesperson and saying to the salesperson, see how you go, hope you get lots of sales, versus saying, salesperson, I'm going to train you intensively for 4 days, and at the end of the next week I expect you to have a 25% conversion rate because that's what our numbers prove that people can do. There's a massive difference between the two conversations when you've hired people. And most people just hire people without a specific KPI or number that a person has to achieve. And it doesn't matter what the role is in the business. When you give a person a number that they're accountable to, it's amazing how well they perform as a result, versus do your best or try hard, versus what were your numbers for the week? I'm looking at them right now. So magic starts to happen with people's performance when they have to perform. And when you give people a number that they can't argue with, they kind of have to perform. So magic starts happening when you develop the people skills and the measuring skills to form that relationship. And it's the same with measuring. When you measure, you find a whole stack of systems that you didn't know that you even needed. And when you have systems, well, ideally people become the byproducts of systems. So when you have great systems, you don't need to hire super experienced people that you've got to pay a fortune just for the privilege of hiring them. You hire less skilled people that get up to speed really fast because your systems will train them to do that. So these are three independent skills, but when you put them all together with an arrow and understand how to combine all three, magic, and I mean magic, starts to happen. So combining these skills transforms busyness into high profit margin businesses that start to run on autopilot. A lot of the clients I talk to a year or two after doing my course, I like to ring them up once a year or so and have a bit of a chat and see how they're going. Often they're taking a lot more time off, but their business is growing. So it's not growing as a result of them, it's just growing organically with the systems and the structures that are in place. And they're taking more time off. They're taking trips overseas in the middle of the year for a month or two, whenever they feel like it. Things like that starting to happen a couple of years later because they've adopted the willingness to learn these certain skills in a business. So to me, it's like a choice. You can choose to take a path in life, or you can choose to take another path. One's the easy road, one's the hard road. To me, this is a hard road initially, but it's an easy road for the rest of your life as a business owner. I always take the hard path. Whenever I'm given the option, I take hard. To me, business is a bit of a game, and it's like sport in some ways. You do keep score in sport. So let's talk about that. All high-performance sports teams have stats of not just the whole business, but also the individual. So every player on the field is tracked for, say, in a sport game like soccer or rugby league. It's like, how many tackles did you do? How many excellent passes did you do? How many mistakes did you make? All those sort of things are tracked individually. So the question for you is, are the people that work for you tracking their stats, or are you tracking their stats, or is anyone tracking any stats? Because you imagine if you took over coaching of, say, the Raw or Broncos, and then you were the coach and you said, no, I'm not going to worry about measuring anything. Let's just go out and do our best, guys. It's not going to be a very winning team. And to me, in business, you can't win in the game of business without having a lot of stats, because you've got no way of holding people accountable effectively, and there's too much unknown aspects to your business. So stats is a big one. In a game, you have a role, a very specific role, where a person is educated on how to play that role. And in business, it's the same. But sometimes business owners hire people expecting that person to be able to know how to do the role. They're not always training them on how to do the role. So putting that in writing as a document, that becomes a system of how to fulfill their role. Celebrating goals achieved. Now, is there a team celebration when you achieve a goal? Are the goals being put down in writing? And is it being celebrated when it's achieved? Or is there no goals being set, no goals being celebrated? And this is where often employees get bored, stale, apathetic, and get sick of working for the company, or, I'll go somewhere else. because there's no excitement, there's no accountability, there's no pushing themselves to achieve, and that's human nature. We like to push ourselves to achieve more. We do like to do that. And in business, that's what we need to adopt as a sporting principle straight into a business environment. Set goals once a month. See if you're achieving them at the end of the month, and have it as a team goal so everyone's involved. Even if it's just two of you, you and one person, it doesn't matter. Even if it's just yourself. Set goals and strive to achieve and set them as a 1 month time frame with some micros in between weekly. Training, we're not competing. A lot of business owners don't stop to train people. They don't want to have a whole team stop work, let's all talk and let's have a meeting. They think that they're too busy to do that. Whereas if you think of sport, well, sport, they train like 3 nights a week for 2 or 3 hours per week, and then they go and play a game that's about 25% or a third of the time that they're trained for. And in businesses, most business owners are not allocating enough time to training, and then they've got a bunch of dumb lackeys running around them as a support crew while they're trying to do everything. And they're wondering why they're not making money. Well, you got dumb lackeys. You haven't got intelligent contributors. And that's what we really need in business. How is a business different to needing stats to a game? In a game as a coach, you have stats. What are the individual roles? Are you fulfilling your role? Are you overlapping into other roles? Are you doing other people's jobs? Are you not doing your job? So to me, that's how you win the game of business. Is start to think along the lines of how to get the best out of people, because business is all about people. It really is. I've found out of all the clients, the 1,200 plus clients that I've trained for nearly 20 years, this is the number one strategy that they all comment on the most. And it's where people were identified as having 4 different personality types back in 2400 BC. So this is old. As old as old. People tend to be more outgoing, or they tend to be more reserved. If they're more outgoing, they're like sprinters. They're multitasking. They're doing lots of things at a time. If they're reserved, they're like ocean liners. They're slow and steady and deliberate and have a lot of momentum once they're started. Then you have people that are task-orientated versus people. Task-orientated means leave me alone. I'll do my work. I don't need to talk to you. I'll just get it done. People-orientated people want to work with people, have a nice camaraderie, a bond with them while they're working with them, and like talking to people. So if you're outgoing and task-orientated, you're what we call a dominant profile. If you're outgoing and people-orientated, you're what we call an influence profile. If you're reserved and task-orientated, you're what we call a compliant profile. And if you're reserved and people-orientated, you're what we call a steady profile. So if I said to you, you're more outgoing or more reserved, well, that helps to identify whether you're more above the line or below the line. And are you more task or people orientated? It helps to identify whether you're on the left or the right of that line. And from those two questions, you start to get a bit of a handle on what you are. And that helps to define your strength and your weakness of how you run a business. So personality to me is like a blind spot. You've got a strength, which is where you're looking. And you've got a blind spot, which is where you can't see. It's like seeing behind your back. You can't see it. And so how you run your business is based on those strengths and those weaknesses, those blind spots, and those strengths of what you're good at. So D and I profiles, the dominant influence, are great at starting and multitasking. S's and C's not so great at starting, but they're good at sticking and staying the course and finishing. So how you run your business makes a huge difference based on your DISC profile, and you'll have strengths and weaknesses based on your DISC profile, and that can hold your business back. D's and I's tend to be better at sales as a whole business model. They're good at winning sales and growing businesses. S's and C's are often the best people to buy from because they provide the best service, because they're better technicians, better at improving what's already working versus going out and getting new work. So that strength and weakness plays a very big role in how you need to grow your business. By understanding yourself, you get better at growing your business as a direct result. And this is the most commented on subject of my clients by far. 2-3 times more comments about what the best thing I taught them over 7 months or 12 months is what they learned. This is the most beneficial subject that they've commented on 2 to 1 over any other thing that I've taught them. They love a lot of other things, but this is the best. So this is a great place to start to learn. And here's an example where a mechanic, his profits jump 50% because I said DISC profile your team and then get together and have a talk about your DISC profiles in a team meeting. Stop work, get them all together, DISC profile, and have a chat. And he did. And a week later, he said, I can't believe it. He said, I've felt that their productivity's been down for 6 months, and I've been harping on about it for 6 months. Water off a duck's back, not getting any result. As a result of what you just taught me to do, he said, their productivity's gone up 50%. And that was a magical result just from doing one thing. So there's a good strategy for you. Well, it's two things. It's actually disprofile your team and then get together and have a chat in a team meeting. And if there's only 2 of you, great. Get together and disprofile yourself, disprofile them. Get together and have a chat. And I recommend you do that. There's a nice way to boost your productivity just from one strategy. So do you like that strategy? Because it works like magic. So well done if you're saying yes. Fantastic. All right. So applying disc profiles to selling and quoting. By teaching a builder this back in 1999, a long time ago, a month later, after teaching him this, his sales increased $60,000 in the next month. It actually created a few problems because he said, I'm drowning, I'm overwhelmed. I've got 3 times more work than what I had before. He went from $30,000 in a month to $90,000 in sales the next month. And he said, I've got to hire 3 people. I can't do that in a month. It was a bit of a struggle for him for a while because we just drowned his business with so much work. It was a huge increase so far as it wasn't funny. So I've been a bit careful since then. I've been warning people that I teach disc profiles and selling the disc profiles. And I have like a one-day workshop, and I'm cautious to teach people for that reason because I know how powerful that is from that experience and a few more. A window manufacturer in Sydney increased their conversion rates from 19 to 41%. Took about 6 months, and a big component of that was disc profiles. But that conversion rate increase added $1.4 million to the turnover in that 6-month time frame. So pretty spectacular result from that. He's a real estate agent, did a sales training course with me years ago. And a month later, he rang me up and said, I've had a spectacular increase in my sales, 357% in the last 30 days, he said. Cabinet maker increased net profit from a loss of $126,000 to $400,000 positive in 10 months. Now, there was a few other strategies in there as well, but the disc profiles played a very big part of that result. This is an engineering firm out at Toowoomba that I warned them if they bring a lot of salespeople. They had 8 salespeople. I said, you bring 8 salespeople to the sales training workshop? I don't know if you're going to handle the work. And they said, bring it on. And they were doing $600,000 in turnover per month already. So the $400,000 wasn't like they went from 40 to 400. They went from 600 to $1 million in the next month. And so I rang him up a month later and said, how'd you guys go? Did you get an improvement? He goes, everyone's like, hell yeah. I said, did you get much improvement? I go, unbelievable, $400,000. I said, how are you handling? He goes, there's a bit of whinging and bitching going on. But he said, we're coping. So that's a good, funny outcome, but a really good outcome. So this is the sort of stuff you can start achieving if you're prepared to pay that pain of discipline versus the pain of regret, as they say. You just pay the pain of discipline. You find the money somewhere, somehow. You pay. You get a course under your belt. You get trained, and you watch some great things happen. It's better than struggling for months or years on end because you just haven't got the know-how. So would you like results like these? So I'm going to share with you how I'm getting some spectacular results. As a plastering business, increased net profit from $27,000 to $204,000. Bathroom renovation company increased net profit from $136 to $308. Direct sales company, well, they maintained their profit while they went from $1.5 million to $10 million in one financial year, which is the year 2013 to 2014. They added $8.5 million to their business. Fiber optic company net profit went from $63,000 to $330,000. A builder went from a loss of 120 to 224 positive profit. The engineering company, that Toowoomba one, they doubled their net profit and actually reduced their staff. I'll talk about that a little bit later. A plumber increased his net profits by $120,000 in a quarter. And all of these were achieved in less than 12 months, but I looked at P&L statements to confirm the improvement, even though it occurred in less time than a 12-month time frame. Typically 3 to 6 months is when all the strategies are going in to achieve these sort of results. But would you like some results like these? Your turnover may not be high, but this is the potential that businesses have. And often when your turnover gets to that 500, 700, 800, a million, couple of mil, the biggest one here was, which one would that be? The Toowoomba business was about 7 mil. the engineering firm was about 7 mil and they doubled the net profit on that. These sort of results are readily achievable, and it all comes down to know-how. So let's first of all talk about a principle of profit, then we'll get into some specific, tongue-tied. So let's take a $1 million turnover business, and we can apply the Pareto Principle, and it's very common. I see this commonly in businesses where 80% of what they do isn't that profitable, 20% is. So let's say that we've got 80% of the turnover, or 800,000 of the turnover, is running at a 3% net profit margin. If you multiply that out, in other words, $24,000 in net profit is coming from 800,000 of the turnover that the business does. And let's say that the 20% was actually quite profitable, and that's not uncommon. A lot of businesses, service manufacturing, are actually running a fairly decent net profit margin on a minority of their work. So in this case, 200,000 times 12, 24,000, coincidentally, it's the same figure. And net profit of $48,000. Now, this is very common. I've seen a lot of businesses around that $1 million turnover mark that are running at about a 5% net profit margin. Might seem low, but it's incredible how common this is in business. Now, if these were your figures, what would you be thinking? Let's say that we just measured your $1 million business, we segmented it, we actually identified what your product or service lines were, and we found there was only 2 main categories. Generally there's 6 to 12, but let's say, keep it simple, let's say there is only 2. Now, if you saw these numbers, what would you be thinking now? I found it by asking a lot of business owners this same question over the years. They'll tend to say, well, I try and do more of that $200,000 or the 12% net margin. So let's say the phone rang tomorrow and you just measured these figures and you just identified the person calling as someone that wanting the service that makes you 12% net. Would you do anything different? Would you spend more time with them? Would you be friendlier? Would you want to give them a quote really fast? Would you try to bend over backwards a bit to try and win that work faster? I'm hoping you'd say yes, because that's ideal, where you say, yeah, I'm going to chase a bit more of that work. So that's one thing you could do. Could you say, well, the 3% is hardly worth being in business for because I'm making hardly anything. I'm going to have to put my price up on that. Could you think of it like this? When people come to your website, let's say you make widgets, but you also do this and this and this and this. So you might have 5 or 6 or 10 different services you offer. If I'm looking for one only services, let's say you're a plumber, and I've got a leaky tap, I'm going to go to a website that says specializing in leaky taps. I'm not going to go to a website that says plumbers. We do everything, all types of plumbing work. On your website, if you have a page specifically, one page on your website specifically for the high margin things that you sell, you will get more work because people think you're a specialist. Or you put some sort of splash page or a banner or emphasis on your homepage talking about specializing in something that is a high margin, you will increase your turnover from it. So by doing these sort of things over 6 months, this is a very achievable figure where you turn your minority of your work into the majority of work. So you chase the work, you ask for referrals, you win jobs earlier, you try to increase your conversion rate of 12% margin, and over 6 months you can start turning it around. You can turn that into 80% instead of 12%. And then instead of doing that 3% work at 3%, we say, well, as we're getting more of the 12% net margin, let's increase the prices on that other type of work. So would this be a reasonable outcome, do you think, 6 months later? 6 months is a fair amount of time if you're going to spend just on this transitioning over, you could say. Look at the magic that's just happened as a result. We haven't hired any more people because we haven't increased the turnover. Just by measuring, we've identified where we make the real margin in a business, and we focused on that margin with trying to increase the volume, why we de-emphasize the work that we used to do that we're not making much margin on. Now, business owners sometimes try to do this, but because they're not measuring to identify and segment their business into these various service lines, they really don't see the numbers. And if you don't see the numbers, it's out of sight, out of mind. You just don't focus on it enough. And therefore, you don't achieve these results. But I found that by teaching business owners how to measure this, giving them measuring tools of how to measure this, amazing things happen extremely fast. And I've watched clients do exactly this. In fact, I've had clients quadruple their net profit, take it from 4% to 12 or 15%. In 6 months, just by teaching them how to measure and get them very, very focused on what sort of things they need to do. Now going back to our bucket with the profit leaks, this is an example of profit leaks. By doing that amount of turnover, 80% of it's not really making any money. So there's big profit leaks for the resources applied to doing the work. That's a big profit leak. So in this case, we're just doubling the net profit, but you can actually triple it, sometimes even quadruple it. And let's talk a bit more about how to do that. So who's excited by that idea? Is anyone here going, wow, I need to do this. I really need to start tracking some numbers. I really need to start thinking about my margins. Anyone here starting to get a bit excited by that? Let's say that we didn't get any of that $200,000 or 5% margin, and so, oh well, we're only making 800,000 turnover on 12%, so we're making 96,000 profit now, and we're not doing the other 20% now. So we dropped our turnover because we rose our prices on the 3% to 5%. We lost all that work. Well, you still doubled your profit. You still got one less employee to worry about. Isn't that a good outcome? And it is a mindset change, because you're in business to make a net profit. You're not in business to run a busyness. And slowing down is how I teach people to accelerate. Let's slow you down. If your turnover goes down, so be it. Well, hire a person, free up your time, get your headspace in the right space. Let's start measuring. Let's find the profit opportunities. I've had clients that have decreased turnover in my course and then saw their profits drop in the course, work with them for 7 months, drop their turnover by, I've had some drop their turnover 300,000 in a 12-month time frame. And then at the end of the course, they're like, yeah, my turnover dropped. I've just put off 2 or 3 staff. I'm back to 3 or 4, and I used to have 6, and it's all declined, but I'm really happy about it. Oh, good. I ring them up 6 months later, and they go, oh, business is spectacular. I'm so glad that I put all those people off, because I was not making any money. I had crappy staff. I didn't know it. You showed me I had poor staff. No wonder I was running a busyness. Now my margins are up. I'm flying. And yet in the course, if you ask them for a testimony, which some people say, I want a testimony from everyone that's done your course, you're not going to hear a good one, because sometimes you've got to take a step back to accelerate, to really launch. You know, if you dig a skyscraper, you dig a hole to start with. You don't build up, you build down. So sometimes measuring is a structure to grow your business phenomenally fast. And like I said, I've had a client go from 1.5 million to 10 million turnover in a year. The next year they did 15. Not sure what they're at now. I haven't rung them up to ask them. But their structure is in place, and they didn't take off like a rocket initially. They put the foundations in. And I'm all about structure and foundations so you can grow fast. And it comes with looking at these sort of things. So let's take a case study. This is a guy called Milton. He's a plumber from the Sunshine Coast. He's got a business called MJ United and Plumbing and Drainage. He's still operating. He's still there. His turnover was $750,000. His net profit margin was 6% when I met him. And that's pretty standard for plumbers. In fact, it's probably a little bit higher than a lot of them, but that would be a very, very typical, very common set of financials. So the first thing I did was say, let's introduce team building. It's like, can't we increase profits? No, we've got to get your team happier, because it's like playing a game and saying, I'm not going to make any of the team players happier. I'm just going to go out there and we're going to go out and crush, kill, destroy, but I'm not going to even get to know the names of any of my employees, and I'm a coach. It's just not going to work. So team building to me is the essence of growing a business. You need to have a team on side with the measuring when you start to produce numbers. So that was the first thing that we did. Then we started looking at his major KPIs, like what is your gross margin, including labour as a cost of sale. We need to start looking at what your true margins are to get a benchmark. We need to know, what does your minimum gross margin have to be? So if you've got a 6% net, what's your gross to give you a 6% net? That's a ratio that we need to identify. Measuring revealed losses on some types of job, because obviously if you're making 6% net, that's the average. You must be making a loss. You're probably running a whole lot of jobs at -2, -5, -10, -15. You're probably running some jobs where you're making 10 and 15, but the majority are going to be low because your average is only 6%. You must be making a loss there. Conversion rates. His conversion rates were less than 30% on new leads and about 50% on existing clients. To me, that's a big profit leak. Big profit leak. You're not converting the leads that you're getting anywhere near the level you need to be. If I see 30% conversion rates for the majority of clients I've worked with, I'd say, well, for your industry, with my experience, that should be 45, 48. And then I'd take clients to that level. And here's an interesting question. If your conversion rate's 30% and it increases to 45, what's your turnover gone to? How much has your turnover increased by? So 30% conversion, and let's say it's a $500,000 turnover business. So with a 45% conversion rate, what's the turnover? The turnover has now gone to $750,000. That's the new turnover when you increase the conversion rate from 30 to 45. I love conversion rates. So that's just the way that my brain thinks with strategies and opportunities. So that's where he was. So then we used a system to sell everything at a minimum gross margin. You need to identify your minimum margins on anything that you sell factually from numbers. So we did that. We focused more high margin jobs, so winning more of those, and looked at conversion rate strategies and applied them to that. And the best conversion rate strategy there is learn how to pick each person's disc profile on the phone from new callers, new customers within 5 seconds. Then you stop annoying them, because each profile is quite annoying for each of the other 3 profiles. So just kind of naturally you're annoying 3/4 of the population without even trying. So by learning disc profiles, your rapport goes up. People like you more. They relate to you more. They want to buy from you more. Simplest strategy there is. Turnover went up to $1,050,000. So it went up from $750,000 to $1 million, but his net profit margin went from 6% to 18%. Massive. $120,000 increase in his cash, in his bank, he said, in 1 quarter. I got a video of him talking about this result on my website. You can have a look if you like. The big thing for me was he felt completely de-stressed. He said, I stopped thinking about my business at home completely. I don't think about it at night. I don't think about it on weekends. And I said, did you used to before? He goes, yeah, non-stop. It's like I never not thinking about my business at home and at night on weekends. He said, I go to bed thinking about it before I sleep and wake up in the morning and think about something I've got to do at work. Instead of weekends, I'm still thinking about it. He said, I just can't stop thinking about it. He said, now I don't even think about it anymore. You've made my business predictable. So that was a pretty good result. I was pretty happy with that. Milton was happy with that. De-stressed, happy alive. That's an example of one result. Let's talk about another one. ProSolve Constructions, business in Brisbane, operating in the south side of Brisbane, originally operating at a loss of $124,000 a year, and a builder. So you can imagine how stressed he was when I didn't even know that's where his business was when he started coming into my course. I said, how did you survive? He said, oh, I had a bunch of properties I was selling. Pumping that back into the business. Oh, okay, that explains it. We determined his minimum gross margin, and that became his sale price on what he was selling, and that included his labour, his subbies, and his materials. Then we measured his gross margin on every job, and because he's running at a loss, that means you must be selling at a loss. You can't be running at a loss unless you're selling at a loss. That's kind of as simple as it is. So he stopped selling those, and some of those at a loss, and then sold more of the high margin ones. We focused on where the margins were by really good measuring, and we freed up his time through team building and systems. Team building and systems helps to free up time. You start to delegate more, you hold more people accountable, therefore they get through more work, so you can free up time a lot at the top by delegating with systems and measuring. And he increased his net profit at $226,000. His turnover also increased by $620,000 on top of what he was doing before. So he had like about a $360,000 net profit turnaround in that business in 7-8 months. So he was pretty happy, de-stressed. Engineering company, I touched on these. These guys are out at Toowoomba. They're about a 7.2 million turnover. Net profit was $308,000. So if you work it out, 4.3% net profit margin. We introduced team meetings. They weren't too keen on because they said, we've got 31 staff. We said, you want us to stop work? Everyone stop work once a week. I said, yep, absolutely. Stop work once a week, run a team meeting. It makes them happier. Happy people are more productive people. And you find out who your bad eggs are, because they're the ones that whinge and bitch and complain the most in a team meeting. And they said, yep, you're right. We found our bad eggs. Reduced their staff from 31 down to 25, funny enough, in the financial year. So reduced their staff by 6. Introduce more systems for admin, sales and production, and doubled the net profit margin. Increased their net profit by $705,000, yet they had 6 less staff. That was interesting. In fact, it was quite amazing that was a result, just by putting in these types of strategies to find out what was going on in the business, by measuring, getting them focused on numbers, team meeting, systems, those 3 things that we talked about before. So let's have a look at the Business Growth Calculator. This is a tool that if you've registered for this webinar was included as part of it. Now, I don't know if anyone here has looked at it. I'm very keen to, who gave it a go? Did anyone here give it a go? 1 for yes, 2 for no. No one really got excited by wanting to play with the tool. It's a pretty static and doesn't really jump off the page that you can get you all excited. In some ways, it gets me excited. I get very excited by numbers, and the more numbers you can show me, the more excited I'll be. Maybe you didn't get to that. That's all right. You do need to know some of your business numbers to fill it in, obviously. That makes it a little bit harder if you don't know any of your businesses. Let's just open up the spreadsheet. This is the exact one I've emailed you. All I did was delete some numbers out of here, and which is the changes. But these are all the same numbers here. Actually, that might have been 100% from memory. Oops, go back here. All right. So you do need to know some of your business numbers. You start by putting in your turnover. You put in your average dollar sale. You know your turnover. You can pretty much guess. Doesn't have to be critical that that's spot on. Just take a guess. You may not know how often people come back to buy from you. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that's all right. But again, have a bit of a guess at that. If people only buy from you once and don't come back because you're selling something for $20,000, then you would put 1 in there. If you think people may come back sometimes, then it might be 1.2 or 1.5. But put something in there for whatever that represents. Your conversion rate, how many quotes do you do? So if you said how many quotes did you do in a month, or how many people did you talk to in a month about price, and then how many bought, you can work that out in the last month. Not too hard usually to work that out, so have a bit of a guess at that. I'm going to put in 25% conversion rate. Lead to quote means how many people did you decide not to even bother giving a price to because you felt that it was going to be a waste of your time to do so. If that's 1 in 10, you would make that 90%. Does that make sense? 1 in 10 people go, I'm not going to bother quoting, and they're just going to say no, or sorry, no, we don't do that type of work, whatever. So that's lead to quote conversion rate. I wouldn't worry about how much you spend per year. That's not that relevant. Gross margin is not that relevant to what we're going to show you, but net profit margin is, and that you can get off your profit and loss statement. So it should show that figure there. But if you put a percentage in here, that adjusts this figure here. So if we put 10% back here, you'll see that that figure now goes to 80. So it'll be 10% of that. All right. So let's put it back to where it was. So these are very common figures for a lot of service businesses. You may have a different business, but that's all right. But for the sake of the exercise, let's just do that. The other thing is you need to put a figure in there, otherwise this whole spreadsheet won't work. So you include public holidays and you might have 4 weeks off a year. Let's say that's 47. And these figures are not that critical. So if that's too hard to work out, then you don't really need to bother if you don't want to, because it's not going to really affect what's on the next worksheet. So that's your basic setup. Then we go over here and have a look at the fun stuff. So these are the numbers here where that's your lead to quote conversion rate, which is what that was here. That's that lead to quote. This is your quote to sale conversion rate, which is that one here. So those same figures are over here. There's your average dollar sale. There's your net profit margin from the other side. There's your transactions. There's your production gross margin average. Actually, we do need that figure. So that's that figure there. There's your production gross margin here. And that's approximately how many leads you're generating in a week, because it divides backwards to get to that. So anything that's coloured is a formula. I haven't got to work it out. So let's say that's where you are right now. So I'd look at these numbers, and to me, it wouldn't really matter what industry you're in. I know for a fact that if your conversion rate of quote to sale is low, you're probably doing quotes for people you shouldn't even be doing quotes for. And that's why I'd want to lower that figure straight away. And that means let's teach you how to deselect people that are a waste of time even talking to. If you spend 20 minutes, half an hour for a quote, then and you've got a low conversion rate here, and I call low anything under 50%, then you need to start qualifying who you're doing quotes for. You can save a huge amount of time by doing that. If I see a quote to sale conversion rate of this figure here, I won't go into too technical things, but that goes up if that goes down, because you're still winning the same number of sales, so therefore your quote to sale has to go up if your lead to quote goes down. If you don't understand that, that's okay, don't worry. It's a bit technical. So we're still seeing a 33% conversion rate here, so I'm going to increase that by 20%, because I know for a fact that a 33% conversion rate isn't very high, and I've had clients where I've taken it from 2% to 8%. I've had clients go from 33% to 75. I've had clients go from 19 to 41. I've had them go from 30 to 58. Like I've improved conversion rates by hundreds of businesses, measuring before and after to see that what I know works. So I know for a fact that if I see 33%, I'm thinking, gee, that's going to go up. It's going to, like 40% to me is extremely conservative. I'm thinking that should be more like about there, because it was 33 and 44 to me is easy, but I'm going to make it conservative. I want to make these figures nice and conservative, so you just start to see what happens. But look down here. Look what's happening down here, because this is the figures where they were. This is what the new figures are. So our turnover per week, or turnover per year equivalent is 800,000. Now it's gone to 960. And all we've done is really one strategy. That one strategy is what does that. See that? So turnover was 800 grand. By increasing conversion rates, it's gone from 800 to there. So we've had a 20% increase, almost 20% increase in turnover. We've had 160,000. All we did was one little conservative strategy, which means you might have to do a sales training workshop. You might have to learn a bit about disc profiles. You might have to learn some, well, a bunch of things I could teach you, but it takes a long time even to talk about. The average dollar sale, I'm not going to try and increase that, but what I'm going to suggest is the prices are too low. So I'm going to say that the prices need to go up by 10%. Now, I want to show you something magical that happens with this tool when you play with price rises, because this is the most powerful thing there is. So if you notice, the net profit margin is the same. See how the net profit margin is the same? Turnover's gone up, yeah. Net profit's gone up, yeah, but the net profit margin is exactly the same because we haven't affected that at all yet. So yeah, it's nice that the turnover's gone up 20%. Yeah, it's nice that the profit's gone up 20%. Yeah, boring. Look what happens when you put a price rise in, because if I see 8%, I'm thinking 10% price rise. Watch what happens. Now, net profit margin's gone from 8 to 16.4, and the net profit's gone from 64 to 235,000. Whereas if we take our increase of conversion rate off, it was 64, it's gone to 196,000, whereas before, well, it's 64. Now with a 10% price rise, 10%, there we go, it's gone from there to there. 132,000 increase in net profit from one strategy. One strategy. One simple strategy. There it is. Who's excited by that? Hopefully you are, because price rise is the number one problem that business owners have. And the problem they have is if they raise their prices, they're going to lose sales. That's why let's teach you how to increase conversion rates to counteract the loss of sales from a price rise. I'm not going to worry about transactions, but here's another one. And if you remember back in when we were talking about it, when I went back, I talked about how to increase gross margins by segmenting, by measuring. So this slide here is where we say, well, look at that. We're increasing the gross margin in production, because before it was 3 and 12. Now it's 12 and 5. So that's increasing. We didn't put the prices up. All we did was increase the gross margin in production. So getting back to where we were, that's what this strategy is. This next one here, increase production gross margin average. And I know when there's price rise, which is let's put everything up by 10% now. And you could even just say, let's just be conservative and make it 5, which I think is too low, but anyway. But we're going to pull up another 5 out of production by doing what I showed you before. We're going to measure, find the stuff that's low margin, stop doing it so low, find the high margin stuff, start doing the high margin, and look what happens. We're going to get our same increase, but we're going to do it through production by measuring to find the lows and the highs, and we're going to sneak in a little price rise of 5. Now I'm being very conservative. These are not over-the-top figures. These are very conservative based on these figures. These are very, very achievable. And look what we're doing here. We're taking the net profit margin from 8 to 17. We're taking the net profit from 64 to 200. We've got 142,000 increase in net profit, and yet the turnover's only gone up 20%. That's not too dissimilar to the plumber, actually. If you remember the plumber, he was 6, and the new net profit margin, well, it shows you here, the new net profit margin is 17.4. That's not too far off where he was. If you remember, he went from 6 to 18. He went from 750K to $1 million. So this is pretty close to his business. And yeah, but He just kept on going. Now, we haven't even talked about leads. I haven't even talked about it. But yeah, we could increase leads, but it doesn't do anything for the net profit margin. It doesn't increase the net profit margin at all by increasing leads. You can increase it 33%. It doesn't do a thing to the net profit margin. But once your net profit margin's high, if it was 17, I'd be going, yeah, let's do lead generation, man. You've got a nice margin. Let's crank it up. So that's this tool, people. So I hope you've got something out of that, and you're going to go and have a look, because that's what's on the video. That's what's on the tool. This is your sample one. You just got to put your own figures in. So you've got these numbers here. You can start playing with it. It even tells you the hours that you're saving. This is saving 4 hours by stopping doing all those quotes. Instead of doing quotes for everyone all the time, you're saving, if you're quoting all week, you just save 1 day a week. Well, you save half a day a week by qualifying who you're talking to. And you may need to hire 2.1 more people, because it works that out for you as well, 2.1 more people to go from 800,000 to $1 million. It calculates that as well. So I hope you're excited by that. I hope you like this tool. But that's an example of what you can do when you start learning. Growing a business is all about improving numbers. All right, so let's go back to where we were. So I want to give you 5 best ways to increase profits, profit margins. Let's talk about that. So team building is an awesome one. So if you've got an employee, I recommend you go to this website. It's only a new thing I put up. It's a team building book, and it's got 5 awesome strategies on how to boost your team's productivity with 5 awesome strategies. One of them is disc profiles, one of them is team meetings, but there's a few others in there, and it gives you a bit of detail on that. So I suggest you do a screenshot if you like, because if you do a screenshot, which is just press your PRTCN button on your keyboard, you'll get a screenshot and paste it in the Word if you like. So that's one. Team building increases profit margins. Next one, conversion rates. Increase your conversion rates with my book, 7 red hot strategies to rocket your profits. And that's on, if you subscribe, I've changed it so if you're subscribing now, I think quite a few of you in the webinar, you've been on my course or been on training before, you probably already got that, but you may not have put a lot of emphasis on the power of what those strategies are. If you did, you would have increased your conversion rate, because most of that book's about conversion rate increase strategies. Production gross margin, measure all your cost of sales. Find out what your cost of sales are on a job, including labour. Don't just think of it as material cost and that's my gross margin. That's the mistake business owners make. Your labour is a bigger variable than materials will be. Materials don't change from buy to sell, but your labour certainly does. From what you think it's going to take to what it does take, you need to know that gross margin. Another way to increase profit margins is don't pay anything for leads. I've generated $1 million in sales in my business over the last 5 years from a zero cost lead generation strategy. I call it 90-degree marketing. And if you go to my webpage, it's got the free stuff, and you have a look under there, you'll find free books. There's a book there called 90-degree marketing. I don't know if you've got it yet, but if you haven't, study that, because your clients are already someone else's. So why go direct to your clients when you can go to someone who's already got your clients? And that's like me saying, gee, an accountant's got my clients. Well, instead of trying to find them, why don't I just go and have a chat to an accountant? And then accountants, funny enough, become my clients, and I get the clients of the accounting firm. That's how I picked up a lot of my clients, by having a chat to the accountant. So it cost me nothing. I put on an event, they pay for it because they invite all their clients. I turn up, I make money, and it cost me nothing. Now that's an extremely good strategy, and yet almost no businesses even consider it. And that book, 90-degree marketing, has some good stuff on that. And price rises is the best way to increase profits and profit margins. But I do it with zero risk with a lot of clients, because if I see their numbers, I can confidently say, yeah, you can do this, you can do that. I probably wouldn't do this, I'd probably do that. So by giving them the confidence of what strategies or what price rises they can get away with, it takes the risk out. Well, you take the risk out when you've got too much work. So it's a very interesting concept to get too much work, and then you don't care about a price rise. You don't care about losing sales then. So these are the 5 best ways that I've identified. There's a lot of others, obviously, but these are 5 of the best, and I've given you some free resources on here, so you can go and check those things out and get those for free if you haven't already checked those out. So these business profits all increase from 50 to 2,000%. And yes, some increased by 2,000%, and they all did it in about 5 to 7 months maximum, all of these ones. So this isn't all my clients. This is what I could fit on a screen. But this is just going to give you an example of how refined the strategies are that I now teach business owners and what difference they can make. So if all these different businesses can get this spectacular growth, increase in profits, not necessarily turnover, but definitely in profits, then why can't yours too? I think it can. I believe it can. What do you believe? So have you learned some good strategies here in this webinar? Has it been good? Has it been interesting? Has it been eye-opening? Very good. Excellent. Thanks for that feedback. Glad to see you liking it, and that's my aim. My aim here is to give you awesome content and some thinking and some strategies so you can start really thinking about what you want to do. And look, I'm here to help you. I've got short courses, I've got long courses, so what I like to do is just talk to you a little bit more. Of course, I could teach you 10 times more. I could teach you 20 times more. This is just like an hour of interesting stuff to get you started, but I like to talk to you about other things that I can offer you and specific profit strategies that I can help identify for your business in the next 1, 2, 6, 7, 12 months. Every business has dozens of awesome strategies, risk-free, cost-free, that they can implement to increase profits. Every single business does. Haven't met a business that you can't do it with. So let's talk about that. This may or may not be something that you're ready for, but just let me go through it if you like, and we'll have a chat about a few other things at the end, whether this works for you or not. So I have a course called the Academy of Business Mastery. It's changed its name a couple of times over the years, and I think I'm going to stick with this one. That's what I'm like as a marketing person with my marketing cap on. I do change names of things. But it's a course that's changed its name. It's the only course with complete systems focused on increasing the net profit margin and growing your business without you having to be there all the time. So imagine a course where you receive full systems for team building and measuring. So you get it all. It's all there. It's a complete system for measuring. You get all the measuring tools your business needs, from P&L analysis tools, the sales tools, marketing tools, production measuring tools, cash flow measuring, business growth calculator tools, all the measuring tools that you need in your business. In fact, I had a company CFO on call. The managing director looked at my tools and said, that's worth the price of your course. Your measuring tools are awesome. Never seen anything like it. That's pretty good feedback from someone who runs a chief financial officer company. You get a list of 155 proven strategies with the top 10 that we'll identify for you, and you will double your profits with 10 or 15 really good strategies. So we give you a tool to help you that's got 155 in it, and then we match 10 to your specific business. In fact, we give you more than that, but 10 as a priority for the year. We look at your P&L and review it to look at what your minimum sale price has to be, because a lot of businesses that don't make much profit are selling at a low margin. So you need to know what margin you need to sell at. So that gross margin minimum sale price is extremely important to know that. Support to customize all the measuring tools to measure sales, measure leads, measure marketing, measure production, measure cash flow. So you get 3 months of support where I will personally be there to look at your numbers with you. You fill them in and I'll look at them. You start measuring, and we put it in Dropbox, which means I can look at it any time. And all my clients, I haven't had a pop-up today, which is good, but a lot of my clients, they work on my measuring tools, or the tools that I gave them that they're now measuring with, and I can see when they're working on them because they get a little pop-up from Dropbox saying this tool has changed or this person's worked on this tool. So I keep a track of what you're doing. So I'm there to hold your hand and guide you all the way. Included in the course are 9 workbooks full of wisdom to read and refer to for years. Very, very common. You get 49 how-to templates and spreadsheets emailed to you. You get a lot of things emailed as templates ready to use, a little bit of customizing. 7 of the best marketing books I've found that everyone in business needs to read. 4 hours of one-on-one individual support time. So we'll talk about your profit and loss statement one-on-one. We'll talk about other tools as well. A system for pricing. So therefore you're not guessing prices anymore, or estimating or guesstimating, or whatever it is that you're using. I've found very few business owners have a system for pricing. In fact, less than 1%. So you get that tool as part of it. Profit share spreadsheet, which is down the track when your business is starting to run pretty well without you, then you've got a profit share calculator spreadsheet that you get as well. And pretty much any question you want to throw at me about this and that and this person, should I do this with this person? Should I promote them? Should I do this marketing campaign? Do you think I should expand into this area? Whatever those questions are, all those questions will be answered in our time together. Team building inclusions, you get all the tools to disprofile yourself and your team forever. It doesn't cost you anything. It's all included in my course. Plus the interpretation of how to read disprofiles once you've profiled someone. How to best lead, teach each disprofile person in your business. and that's very powerful that you teach and lead each person their unique way. Strategies to motivate your team to become happier, more productive and independent of you, so we're freeing up your time as well. KPIs to make your team more accountable. What KPIs should you identify and put in place for employees in sales, in marketing, in admin, in production, technical roles? What are those KPIs? A recruitment system, a complete recruitment system to hire great attitude staff, from the ad to the interview questions. Everything is included in that as a recruitment system to hire great attitude staff that you can trust, rely on, depend on, even when you're not there all the time, and how to make sure that you can with what I call accountability KPIs thrown in place. Strategies for sales and marketing, proven strategies to increase your conversion rate, how to define your USP to stop competing on price. USP stands for unique selling proposition. Why should I buy from you and not your competitor? That's the answer to that question. There's a USP, and defining that is critical. How to use social media marketing effectively. A spreadsheet with those 155 strategies, and it's got a rating of effectiveness on all 155 and a cost to implement if it's a lead generation strategy. Some do, some don't. So it's a very powerful reference tool to say what strategies specifically will work for my business that I can get around to implementing one day. And I guarantee you'll get at least 50 out of that. At least 50 will be relevant and will work for your business. And then we identify the best ones. And then a powerful lead generation strategy that generates hot to buy leads for free. So the Academy training is an online group training course. It is a small group. All sessions are recorded, so you can review it forever. You can just access the download because it's being recorded online. We meet for half a day every fortnight online in a video conference. And because it's a fortnight, we ends up about 15 times over a 7-month time frame. So we discuss specific strategies to implement with email attachments. So it's not like, all right, we've had a chat, off you go. You figure out what you're going to implement in your business. That's not my problem. And that's actually the opposite. Let's talk specifically about what strategies you need to implement, and here's how to implement them, and here's the tools that you need to implement them, and let's discuss them 2 weeks later. And if you've got any questions, email me in the meantime. So it's very, very much a guided hand-holding process. It's not just cut you loose with a bit of a chat. And because we do a review, the next session we'll spend half an hour to 3/4 an hour discussing what you've implemented. That's your time to talk about your challenges or anything that's come up as well, or talk about your great results. If we go slow, we only do about 16 slides in about half a day. So there's plenty of time to discuss everything, and it's an interactive discussion process. It's not like here where I'm talking, you've got to listen, because that's a webinar. Unfortunately, webinars don't work too well if you open up everyone to be able to talk. So the course schedule works like this. Week 1, we talk about building your vision and how to leverage, how to adopt an entrepreneur's mindset to start thinking leverage. Team building and recruitment, we'll talk about the next session and the one after. So that's week 3, week 5. Week 7, week 9, the magic of measuring. That's where we start rolling out how to measure P&Ls. Let's look at your P&L. Let's have a chat one-on-one on the phone and review what the numbers are telling us about your margins. Let's talk about what strategies we need to plan with to achieve your goals. What are your top 10 strategies? We'll talk about that. Then we have a break for halfway through, a bit of a review, catch your breath. Then we're into systems for profit growth. What are the systems that you need to increase your profits? Not systems for the sake of them, but systems to increase your net profit. Then we'll talk about the secrets of sales and marketing, and they are huge secrets, because a lot of the things I talk about, I've found less than 1 to 2% of businesses actually know. And I wonder how they survive when there's some real fundamental principles to marketing. Unfortunately, the saying, a fool and their money are soon parted, is very true, because a lot of business owners just lose their money by paying for things that were never going to make the money with online marketing and offline marketing these days. So we'll talk about what those secrets are in that. Talk about management, the final phase, which is how to set your business up to operate without you, including how to hire a general manager or how to exit your business, and exactly what you got to do that with your business. All that's included in that last session, or second last session, I should say. Then we do a final review. We talk about vision and mission statements and why you need them and how to write them, and get them written with you at the time, and a bit of a celebration at the end. It spans about 29 weeks in total. So the value in the Academy, you get 52 hours of live, interactive, online training. 4 one-hour phone calls spread throughout the training in the course typically we kick in with that first one. We say, well, here's a way to look at your P&L. Let's drop your P&L into this tool and let's have a chat about your margins and what your sale price needs to be. So there is quite a few one-on-one chats that we do. You also get video. It can be a video call sometimes. Sometimes I'll say, well, let's have a video call, or let's look at a measuring tool together while we're online. 7 months of email support, and you get 24-hour responses. You get very quick responses from me on anything. So if you've got a question, a query, you don't understand things, you want help, I'm here. 9 workbooks and video training instructions. A complete team building and recruitment system. So if you had to buy a recruitment system, which by the way you can't, because I've looked in the world, you can't actually buy a recruitment system. Recruitment companies will charge you $5,000 to use them once. So I think a recruitment system is worth about 10 grand. 39 pages of disc profile content, tools and training, 50 plus strategies identified for your specific business, a complete measuring system. No business coaching program comes remotely close to giving you all this content, even over 12 months. It doesn't give you these workbooks. It doesn't give you complete measuring tools and complete systems. Yet the price for coaching, $36,000 a year for an experienced business coach that's been around for 15 years like myself. So the Academy of Business Mastery course, the value of it's well over $36,000 because I know business coaches that charge $48,000 a year. And I've met quite a lot. I met dozens that charge about $30,000 a year, and I've trained 35 business coaches myself, so I'm aware of what's going on in the industry. So the first 3 businesses, I'm only looking for 3 because I tend to run them in small groups because I really want to help the heck out of people in my course to get them awesome results. So I used to run 7, 8, 9, 10 businesses. I've reduced numbers down because I want to get a better result for the people that attend now. You confirm your place with a $100 deposit. It is tax deductible. And if you want to do the whole course, it will cost you an investment of $1,760 per month times 7. Works out about 12 grand. So it's about a third of the price of the best business coach you'll probably find anywhere. And it's all documented, it's all systemized, and you get it on video so you can review the actual sessions that we had pretty much forever. So the Academy of Business Mastery, we kick off, the next one's kicking off on Wednesday, 25th of November, 8:20 a.m. I do deliver these online, so they can be in time zones that suit countries, and they do kick off at various times, so there can be morning or afternoons. It works really well. But next one's kicking off then, and then we'll do one session before Christmas, so 9th of December, and then we'll continue on 15th of January, and then every second Friday for 2016. So 15 sessions in total. You can work that out on your calendar pretty easy. The first month's payment confirms your place due next week. So you need to pay for the first month a week before we start because I need to print workbooks for people that have paid me and I need time to mail them to you. If I don't have time to print them and mail them, then sorry, you missed the spot. It needs to be at least a week out. Otherwise, I don't consider you coming. It's not an intention. It's a commitment. The first 3 course spots confirmed with a $50 deposit. And if you've got business partners, they can attend for free. And this is a website to go to, wyourprofits.tv, not .com, .tv/success. And you'll know when you get there because it'll have a basic application form. Doesn't look much when you get there, but it is just background information on you and your business. So register for the Academy of Business Mastery, and that's all I need from you. And then I'll be in touch. I'm looking for 3 business owners only to kick off this next one. As I said, I do tend to run them fairly regular. I'm not running as often as I used to because I'm diversifying into other things myself. Minimum criteria for eligibility. I do like people to have had at least 3 years business experience. And I like businesses to have about a 500K turnover. I'll take them a little bit lower, but I like them to have 1 or 2 employees, and then they're more ready to implement the team building and some of the more important things that are part of the course. So register now. No payment required straight away because there isn't a payment form on that page. There's just a background application, and then I like to have a chat to people. Might be an email, might be a phone call to just see if tick your boxes, make sure that everything works for you, and you're good to go. Have you got any questions before I share a couple of other little things? Got some great value out of Andy? Great, thanks mate, that's good to hear. There's a couple other things I might have a touch on too that you might like. Anyone else got any questions? Put them in the chat box if you have. So it may or may not suit you depending on your business size. And look, If it doesn't suit you right now, I do have something else that I think would be right up your alley. It's a course called W Profits. Now, I used to have it on this website. That's why I've got this URL. It's called wprofits.tv. 17 hours of content. So you can imagine me talking for 17 hours on similar subjects to this. And the price for this, look, I'll go to the actual W Profits. Here we go. W Profits training course. The price for this is under $300. In fact, it used to be sold for $997. I've dropped the price enormously. And now I like to give it to people for $297. So the $297 is an absolute bargain. Now, if you're ready for the other course, you just need to go to that page and fill in your background. So go to wprofits.tv/success if you'd like to apply for the Academy Business Mastery, which is the $1,760 per month times your 7 months. Fill in your details on that website and I can kick you off on that. If you're not quite ready for that course because you're not really employing people or whatever, that W Profits course, that would be perfect. If you like the idea of doing something with me and you're valuing what we talked about here today and you've got some good value out of it, there's your couple of options. So your wprofits.tv/success or this website here, which is go to my homepage and then under training courses and then down the bottom it has W Profits training course. That's the page I'm on here. And if you fill in your details here, and it's got country, phone numbers, etc. If you're not in Australia, that's all right. I'll email you. We could set up a video conference and have a chat because I believe I operate with a lot of integrity and a lot of ethics in what I do, and I only put out quality stuff, and I do not sell stuff to people that I don't think it suits them. So that's why I do like to get to know people before they buy things from me, just to make sure they are a good fit and a good match to what I offer. So that's about all for me, folks.